Today we're going to be talking about 1/6 scale Bib Fortuna figures, and the main reason for that is that this guy right here, the new Bib Fortuna figure from Sideshow Collectibles, has just recently come out, or at least I managed to get mine sent a bit earlier than I had actually been expecting it. It said, I think when I ordered, that it should be expected from October to February or January or something like that. I ended up getting it, I think, at the tail end of November or beginning of December, around then. Haven't opened it yet because I've been waiting to make this video. So we're going to look at him, of course, but we also want to look at some of the other ones that have been released in the past. Well, these are all of them, as a matter of fact. There haven't been that many. We have the original right here in the middle is from Hasbro in the 90s. I think this is probably 97? Not sure. We can look at the box in a second. And then over here we have the first Sideshow release that they released in 2006, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how these kind of progress over time. We'll see if they've gotten any better or worse. And we'll see, well, first of all, I guess by comparing the boxes, see how those stack up, so to speak, against each other. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, we have the Hasbro one that was released in the 90s, as I said, part of a surprisingly extensive line of 12-inch figures that they did. Some of it really, really nice, actually, especially when you consider the price. Others, well, not quite as nice, perhaps. I think a lot of collectors, rather, at the time probably kept theirs in the box and didn't even take them out. They were kind of like, you know, not really made for posing and you know, individually displaying as much as maybe later high-end figures were. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at this. It's a big box because it includes not only Bib, but also Luke Skywalker on the back. Not a whole heck of a lot. It just tells you that it includes a diorama of Jabba the Hutt and his palace over 30 inches long, which I've never actually opened up, you know, and gotten out of here. Maybe I should do that sometime. If we open this up, there's a flap where you can see them in there. I have taken Bib out, so he's kind of loose in there. They would have originally been fixed by twisty ties and so forth. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get him out and see what he looks like. All right, well, here's good old Bib on his own. He, like all of the other 12-inch Hasbro figures of the time, has a combination of soft goods and rubber in terms of his outfit. You know, it's got cloth and other parts mixed together, which is cool. He's on kind of a, I guess you'd call it an old-fashioned G.I. Joe style body. You know, not a lot of articulation, but some. Enough probably to do what you'd want Bib Fortuna to do, with one exception. His arms, you know, and legs and things are on ball joints, so they do have quite a bit of posability, although right here, the wrist looks really kind of strange because it's on this weird ball joint that's visible. But I do appreciate that they made custom hands for him, at least. The one exception I was going to mention, though, is that the head is only turnable from left to right, and you can kind of only barely do that because these leku are in the way. And you can't move it up and down at all. It's not on a ball joint, which is a bit of a problem, although I guess you can kind of angle his whole body if you want him to, you know, kind of peer up at someone or something like that. His leku do have these little things here that are usually seen when you have a wire inside of a rubber piece. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe somebody knows in the comments what the purpose of these are. Are they a side effect of the manufacturing process, or are they... I often wondered if maybe they were kind of to relieve some of the pressure so that when you bend this, it doesn't, you know, like crack or something. I'm not even really sure how they work, but you do see these dots in a lot of this kind of figure, and they're also on this one as well. The face sculpt, actually, I think is pretty good. It looks reasonably enough like Bib Fortuna from the films. I do think the paint job is a little weird. It's all blue, very blue forward, right? And it's, I don't know, looks kind of vampiric, especially with his pink eyes and sharp teeth and everything. This is not quite how I picture Bib Fortuna. I would imagine him to be more a light pink or something like that. But there are other figures that use this color scheme, so I don't know. Otherwise, the outfit, it's not bad. You know, it's a custom robe that looks like it should more or less for him, but it is very thin. Now, that might be a good thing in the sense that it, you know, if you have too thick of a fabric on a lot of these 12-inch figures, it looks really out of scale and unrealistic. So I think they did manage to escape that, but got hairs all over the but I do think, you know, when you can see through it, it's not great. So I you know, kind of give it a mediocre score for that. But when you consider how cheap these would have been, I don't know actually how much this exact one was because it was a 2-pack with Luke, but these tended to be on the, you know, $15, $20 range. Probably a 2-pack would have been more, 30 maybe or something, I'm just guessing. But not very expensive for sure, and when you consider that, these are actually pretty nice. Keep that thought in mind, by the way, because we're going to move on to the first Sideshow release. All right, next up we have the Sideshow Bib Fortuna figure. As I said, this was released in 2006, and it was intended basically as an accessory for their 1/6 scale Jabba setup. So the number of people buying him who didn't have the Jabba, you know, either on its own or with the whole throne, are probably would have been very limited. I remember when I got mine. Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about Sideshow figures as they were at the time. These were actually really cheap figures. They didn't necessarily seem super cheap at the time, but they were like in the $50-ish range, $50 to $60, you know, depending on the figure. It's really, really quite cheap. And when I got this one, brand new, I got it from like a reseller on eBay. I remember it stuck in my memory because they sold it for $19.77. 1977. I don't remember. I think that might even have included shipping. I'm not sure. But super cheap. And I think it just goes to show how many people probably didn't really want him as a standalone figure. They just wanted him as an accessory for the Jabba setup. And that kind of, by necessity, limited the number of people who would buy him. They also made an exclusive version of this that actually came with his staff, which didn't appear in the movie, but was part of the vintage Kenner figure. I don't actually have that one at the moment, though. So now, back in the day, in the sort of mid-2000s, when Star Wars was, you know, one of Sideshow's biggest new properties, they released a lot of stuff, and they had these really nice, in my opinion, boxes. These are, you know, about the size of a shoebox, and they have magnetic closures, so you can open them up like that, and they close up. They open up usually in two. I didn't put the Sideshow bib back in here because it's kind of a deal to put it all back, but you could if you wanted to. You have the main figure over here, and then you had his accessories and stand over here. So I think this is a really nice type of box, including the blurb here in the middle. So, you know, especially considering the price, pretty impressive box. Now let's look at the figure itself. And here we have the original Sideshow bib. He is on their original body, which is kind of weirdly proportioned. I think a lot of people thought the forearms were too long on that, and just sort of, you know, it wasn't the best body in the world, but still much better than the Hasbro one in terms of posability. It is a little on the loose side. I don't know if that's something that's developed over the years or if it was originally like that, but it definitely could use the stand. I don't know how well he would stand up on his own. We have a nicer outfit for sure than what we got with the Hasbro. He's got kind of a felt robe and then an inner one of a different material. This part is made out of, I'm assuming, well, it's plastic of some kind, and then it's been painted quite nicely, actually. The only problem is, and I don't know how this happened, but on mine, there's two little dots here where he was leaning up against something, I think, maybe part of the throne environment, and it kind of over time reacted with it and gave him a little dots there. But overall, I think this is a decent outfit. Not amazing, but a step up from the Hasbro for sure. I do think these look a little strange. I don't know if the actual Bib Fortuna outfit from the movie, if these were supposed to be like bracers or bracelets, or if it was supposed to be attached or what. But it is difficult to get. I feel like it would look best if these were, you know, like that, not having skin showing here. But it's quite difficult to make it happen that way. He does come with, as I recall, a couple extra hands, which I don't have right to hand, so to speak. But one of them was like a grasping hand, so he could hold a froggy snack. And then he's got this pointing hand, like he's, you know, making a point to tell something to Jabba. I do appreciate extra hands like that. And the face, I think the face is quite good with a couple of reservations. In reality, I'm not sure that I'm looking at it in the camera here, and it actually looks better than in person, weirdly, but the resemblance to Michael Carter, who played Bib Fortuna, is only there, I think, sort of from some angles, but it definitely looks like Bib Fortuna as a character, so I'm not too upset about that. And I do much appreciate the pinker color scheme that they've used. I think that makes a lot of sense. We don't have any of those mold marks or whatever they are, the little dots for the wire. And I guess I'm trying to think if this actually is posable. It's not really super posable if it is. But, I mean, when do we really need to be posing his Leku? Honestly, we just want them to kind of just be there and get out of the way, I think. He does have, in terms of his expression, a bit of a deer in the headlights look. He's just, you know, looks like he's zoned out a little bit, which I would prefer probably something where he's looking a little bit more, you know, like he's scheming or something like that. But it's not terrible. So overall, you know, especially given the price, even today, this is not an expensive figure. I think if you want a Bib Fortuna for your display, this is not a bad one to choose, but we'll have to see how the new Sideshow version, which is dramatically more expensive, shall we say, stacks up to this. So let's go ahead and look at that one now. So this is the box for the new Sideshow Bib Fortuna. And so I should probably explain, I gave up collecting Sideshow Star Wars basically entirely. I gave up. For a while, I was sort of broadly collecting 1/6 scale figures, and I think they're really cool. Hot Toys has done amazing work, but they're so expensive, and you know, it just became kind of too difficult to keep up with everything that was getting released. So I ended up selling basically all of my non-Star Wars stuff. All of my I mean, I had a few, quite a few non-Star Wars 6 scale figures that I got rid of. I kept some of them, a few of them, but basically all that I kept was my Jabba display and a few of the cheaper, like Jedi and things that Sideshow released toward the beginning of their line. But all this is to say that I'm not really familiar with how Sideshow 1/6 scale figures are nowadays. So I wanted to see what that's like. I'm assuming that this is a semi-decent representation of the rest of the toys that they come out with. So like with the box, it's just a simpler box. It doesn't have any kind of gatefold design. It's basically a shoebox. It is nicely printed. It's got nice cardboard, and you know, it looks decent. But let's open it up and see what it looks like inside. Okay. All right, so we've got, you know, just this slides off the top, and then inside we have the figure in plastic, this is pretty much very similar to what we saw with the earlier figure from Sideshow, just in a different style box. You can take him out. He's in a kind of a plastic tray with this part going over the top, and then on the bottom we have the stand. So let's go ahead and open this guy up. We have the figure itself with a bunch of plastic around various parts of it to protect the paint job, I'm assuming. We've got extra hands, and what is this? Oh, that's just his feet. So that's it, basically. This doesn't really come with much in the way of accessories, except for this silica gel pack. Let's take a look at him. This is my first time seeing him out of the package. Ooh. That looks pretty cool. Let's see if we can get him unwrapped. There we go. Definitely a more realistic paint job. He does got a little dust on him, or dirt. That's pretty impressive, I'll say. I will say, just off the top of my head, his eyes look like they're just a little bit cross-eyed, like he's looking at something right about here, which I'm not sure is intentional. But the mouth is really impressive looking. You can look down in there and see what appears to be a tongue behind the teeth and the inner lips. That's really cool. They've done a good job on that. The outfit, let's go ahead and take these things off first. The outfit is looks like it's made out of more of a fake suede kind of material, or a microfiber type material, and it's also been weathered, which is nice. The other ones did not have any kind of weathering or anything, so it looks like they have given some thought to this. Some care was given to his outfit. Then we have the inner one. He's got not only this kind of well, see, in the other versions, this is more of a dress, and this is, in this case, it's more just sort of these panels hanging down in front of pants. I'm not actually sure which is more accurate, but I'm guessing this is. He's got this thing, which is made up of, you know, plastic, vinyl, and they're connected by these little bits of, I don't know, fake leather or something along those lines. That actually looks really cool. And you can see more leather attaching this, and then he's got this sort of obi belt. It does look really nice. You know, if we compare it to the previous Sideshow one, you can see it's going to be a little tricky. You can see, I think, the difference there. But it's not like a million miles away, let's say that. They do both have, by the way, kind of like his little sore spot there on his Leku. And in fact, even the Hasbro one has that as well. Let's go ahead and put him on his stand and see what he looks like kind of posed. So here he is on the stand. I gotta say, looks really good, actually. Overall, the impression is considerably nicer than what we have with the previous Sideshow one, and of course the Hasbro one is no comparison. I really do like that they took the time to do a little bit of weathering, like you can see on the edges of here, as if it's been in, you know, a sandy, dirty environment. It does look quite good. Turn him around. Looks really cool. Looks, you know, convincingly like Bib Fortuna, in my opinion. Now he does come, as I showed you, with a couple of additional hands. I think I'd like to try putting at least one of those on, so let's see how that works. I do recall in the past that I had some trouble sometimes getting the hands on and off. Oh, by the way, let's look at how they did this. So it does seem to be like a separate, basically gauntlet type thing, or large wristlet, but it does not leave a you know, an empty space here between the sleeve and that. So that looks much better in my opinion. So if we just take this and pull it out, you can see there's a ball joint there. That's part of the hand. And we just put this in here. That was easy. So now we can kind of have him gesticulating if we want. I don't know if I want both hands like that or not. Maybe not. It might be a little much. But we can kind of do that. I do kind of wish that they had one that was just pointing like they did with the other one, though. But these are pretty good. I am going to try and take him upstairs to my Sideshow 1/6 scale Jabba setup and get a picture of him in situ. It's way too difficult to bring all that down here, so the lighting conditions may not be great. You'll have to forgive me for that, but hopefully we can get a picture to show you right here. So here we have all three of the 12-inch scale Bib Fortunas. It may look like the new one is a lot taller than the others, and he is a bit taller than the others, but part of it is just that this base is quite thick. Like he's not on a base at all, and this one is on a base that's about a third the thickness of this one, so not quite as big as it might originally have appeared. Is it worth getting the new one? Because we haven't talked about the price of this one yet, have we? Well, how much do you think a figure like this would go for? I mean, if you're not familiar with current 1/6 scale figure prices, you might be a little bit surprised to hear that this is a $280 figure. That is real expensive, to be honest with you, for this amount of figure. It's a very nice figure, but $280, and they're not only releasing him, they're releasing a bunch of other guys from Jabba's Palace and the Skiff, Jabba's Skiff, for similar prices, $275, $280. Boy, it's really hard to justify that. I'm not sure that I, even at being such a big Jabba fan that I am, can justify getting all of those. But I thought at least Bib Fortuna, right? He's by far the biggest, most major character in all the ones that they're releasing, and I figured it would be worth getting him as a kind of a test to see if I, what I thought of them. I want him to kind of upgrade my Sideshow Jabba display anyway. So I think it was worth getting this for me personally anyway. But as for whether I'm going to get more, I don't know. I don't know. I really think these are closer to $200 figures, if I'm honest with you. So that's my opinion. Definitely a really good figure, though. Just that it doesn't come with basically anything in the way of extra accessories, and there's nothing super special about it. It doesn't really seem like it's quite up, in terms of elaborateness or quality or anything to justify that amount of money. All right, well, that's about it for today. I think this will be my last video for 2025. I hope that the next year will be better for all of us. Thanks very much for watching, and have a Happy New Year.